She told me everything in that letter. 19 years too late. But she told me. I'm standing in my small kitchen now, staring at the envelope Connor brought me 3 days ago. My 17-year-old grandson, a boy I'd never met until he knocked on my door with red-rimmed eyes and a storage unit key clutched in his hand. "Grandma Margaret," he'd said, his voice cracking, "Mom died last Tuesday. Liver failure. Before she went, she made me promise to give you this." I didn't cry when he said it. I'd already mourned Jennifer, 19 years ago. Let me take you back to where it started. March 2006. I was 48 then, working as a dental hygienist in Denton, Texas. My husband Frank had died 2 years prior from a sudden heart attack, leaving me with our modest house, his life insurance money, and our only child, Jennifer. She was 23, fresh out of college, living in the apartment above our detached garage, while she looked for work in marketing. We were close. Or I thought we were. She'd come down every Sunday for dinner, help me with the garden, talk about her job applications, and the future she was building. I'd been saving since she was born for her graduate school fund, $95,000 in a separate account. Not a fortune, but enough to give her a real start. Frank and I had always agreed, education was the one thing nobody could take from you. I came home from work on a Thursday afternoon, March 16th. I remember because it was 2 days before Frank's birthday, and I'd planned to visit his grave with flowers. The house felt wrong the moment I opened the door. Too quiet. Too empty. The garage apartment door was open, swinging slightly in the wind. All of Jennifer's things were gone. Clothes, laptop, the framed photo of her and Frank at her college graduation. Like she'd never been there at all. I found the note on my kitchen counter, weighted down by her house key. "Mom, I'm sorry. I needed the money. Don't try to find me. Jennifer." 10 words. After 23 years of being her mother. 10 words. I called the bank immediately, hands shaking so hard I could barely dial. The account was empty. Withdrawn in cash the day before. She'd had my account information, had helped me organize my finances after Frank died. I'd trusted her completely. But it wasn't just the college fund. Over the next week, I discovered she'd forged my signature on a home equity loan, maxing out the line of credit against my house for another $40,000. She'd sold my car, the Honda Accord Frank had bought me for our 20th anniversary, to some buyer in Oklahoma City for $8,000 cash. The title had been in the glove compartment. Gone. Everything liquidated. $143,000. And my daughter had vanished like smoke. I filed a police report. They were sympathetic but realistic. Adult daughter, no signs of force. Voluntary theft from family member. They'd look for her, they said, but unless she used credit cards or showed up somewhere official, she was a ghost. People who want to disappear generally do. I couldn't eat for a week. Couldn't sleep. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning convinced I'd heard her key in the lock, that she'd come back to explain, to apologize, to tell me it was a mistake, or a joke, or a terrible misunderstanding. But the door never opened. The worst part wasn't the money. It was the not knowing why. Jennifer had never been reckless with money, never asked me for loans, never even hinted she was struggling. She'd had a trust fund from her grandmother, $20,000 that she'd used for college. She'd worked part-time all through school, prided herself on not taking student loans. What could possibly have made her do this? I kept thinking about the last Sunday dinner before she left. She'd been quiet, distracted. I'd asked if everything was okay, and she'd smiled at me, said she was just tired from job hunting. Had that been the moment? Had she already decided to rob me and run? The bills started coming due. The home equity loan payments I couldn't afford. Property taxes. I was looking at losing the house Frank and I had built our life in. The house where Jennifer had learned to walk, where we'd celebrated every birthday and Christmas, where Frank had died in our bed with me holding his hand. I took out a second mortgage just to pay off the home equity loan. Started working 6 days a week, picking up extra shifts wherever I could. Weekends, I cleaned houses for cash under the table. I sold everything that wasn't nailed down at estate sales and pawn shops. Frank's tools, our good china, my mother's jewelry, except for my wedding ring. I moved out of the master bedroom into the smallest room to save on heating costs. The neighbors knew. Small town like Denton, everyone knows everything. I saw it in their faces at the grocery store, heard the whispers cut off when I walked into the church potluck I'd been attending for 20 years. That's Margaret Walsh. Her daughter stole from her and ran off. Can you imagine? I stopped going. Years passed. I worked and paid bills and worked some more. The house stayed standing. Barely. I learned to live on next to nothing. To find clothes at Goodwill. To make a pot of soup last a week. I got promoted at work. Then laid off when the practice downsized in 2010. Found another job at a pediatric dentist's office for less pay. I tried to find Jennifer at first. Hired a private investigator for 3 months. Until I couldn't afford him anymore. He found nothing. No credit card activity. No phone records. No employment history. She'd taught herself to live off the grid. Or she'd changed her name. Or both. After a while, I realized I didn't know what I'd say to her if I did find her. What do you say to someone who destroys your life and walks away? I thought about her every single day for the first 5 years. Then it became every week. Then just on her birthday and holidays. The anger calcified into something harder. Something that lived in my chest like a stone. I wasn't sure anymore if I wanted answers or if I wanted her to stay disappeared forever. I met other women over the years who'd been through similar things. At a support group for financial abuse survivors, I heard story after story. Children who drained parents' retirement accounts to feed drug addictions. Siblings who stole inheritances. But there was usually an explanation, however terrible. Drugs, gambling, mental illness. Something. Jennifer had none of that. She'd been healthy, stable, ambitious. That's what made it incomprehensible. By 2015, I'd stopped expecting to ever understand. I was 57, tired down to my bones, living paycheck to paycheck in a house held together with duct tape and prayer. This was my life now. I'd accepted it the way you accept a chronic illness. You learn to function around the pain. Then, last Monday, Connor knocked on my door. I didn't recognize him at first. A tall, gangly teenager, with Jennifer's dark hair and blue eyes that were pure Walsh family. He was wearing a wrinkled button-down shirt and jeans, holding a small duffel bag and crying. "I'm Connor," he said, "Jennifer's son, your grandson." I'd imagined this moment 100 different ways over the years. Screaming at her, slamming the door, calling the police, but standing there, looking at this kid who had my daughter's face and my late husband's eyes, I just felt hollowed out. "She's dead," he continued when I didn't speak. "I'm sorry. I know you probably don't want to hear from us, but she made me promise. She said I had to find you, had to give you something." He held out a small silver key attached to a piece of paper, with an address scribbled on it. "It's a storage unit in Fort Worth. Unit 347. She's been paying for it for 18 years. Said everything you need to know is inside." I looked at this boy, this stranger who was my blood, and felt a wave of exhaustion so profound I had to grip the doorframe. "Come in," I heard myself say. "You look like you need to sit down." He came in hesitantly, perching on the edge of my worn couch like he thought it might collapse under him. Maybe it would. Everything in this house was barely holding together. "I didn't know about you until 2 months ago," Connor said. His words tumbling out fast like he was afraid I'd stop him. "I didn't know I had family. Mom never talked about her past. She told me my dad left before I was born and she didn't have any family. We moved around a lot when I was little. Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana. Never stayed anywhere more than a few months. When I was about 8, we settled in Little Rock, and things got better. She got a job as a restaurant manager. We had an apartment. I went to school in one place for more than a semester." He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "She was a good mom. Strict but fair. Made sure I did my homework, took me to baseball games, worked extra shifts so I could go on school trips. But she never talked about before. I asked once when I was 12, and she said her old life was dead, and it needed to stay that way." I sat in Frank's old recliner and listened. What else could I do? "She got sick last year," Connor continued. Liver disease. Cirrhosis, the doctors said. But she'd never been a drinker as far as I knew. Maybe when she was young. I don't know. She kept working until she couldn't anymore. Used up all her savings on medical bills. We lost the apartment in August. Moved into a weekly motel. She kept getting worse. His voice broke. Last week, she went into the hospital and didn't come back out. I was with her at the end. She was mostly unconscious. But she'd have these moments of clarity. That's when she told me about you. About what she did. About the storage unit. She made me memorize the address. Made me promise I'd find you and give you the key. She said, "Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I never stopped being sorry. Tell her everything's in the box." I stared at the key in my hand. It felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "I don't have anywhere else to go," Connor said quietly. "I'm 17. I've got $400 to my name and no family except you. If you want me to leave after this, I understand. But Mom said, you'd help me understand. That whatever's in that storage unit would explain everything. Part of me wanted to throw this boy out, tell him to deal with the consequences of his mother's choices the way I'd had to. But looking at him, I saw myself 19 years ago. Lost. Broke. Betrayed. He was as much a victim as I was. There's a hostel downtown that takes young people," I said carefully. "I can drive you there. Give you some money to hold you over." His face fell, but he nodded. "Okay. Thank you." Or, I heard myself continue, "You can sleep on the couch tonight. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow." The relief in his eyes made him look about 12. That night, I lay in bed, holding the storage unit key. Did I want to know? 19 years of not knowing had nearly destroyed me. But at least I'd survived it. What if the truth was worse? What if Jennifer had some reason that made sense? Some explanation that meant I'd wasted 19 years hating her for nothing? Or worse, what if there was no good reason at all? What if she'd just been selfish and cruel, and this storage unit was empty, or filled with more lies? Connor was asleep on the couch when I got up at dawn. I wrote him a note saying I'd be back later, to help himself to anything in the kitchen. And I took the key. The storage facility was on the industrial side of Fort Worth, a sprawling complex of orange units behind a chain-link fence. I gave the code from the paper to the gate attendant, drove through rows of identical metal doors until I found 347. My hands were shaking as I fitted the key into the lock. It turned smoothly, well-oiled. The door rolled up with a metallic screech. Inside was a single large cardboard box sitting in the center of an otherwise empty unit. I stood there for a full minute, staring at it. This was it. 19 years of questions in one box. I pulled it out into the sunlight, used my car key to slice through the packing tape, and opened it. On top was an envelope with my name written in Jennifer's handwriting. Underneath were file folders, papers, photographs, and at the bottom, bundled in rubber bands, stacks of cash. I picked up the letter. Sat down right there on the concrete and unfolded it. "Mom," it began. "If you're reading this, I'm dead. And Connor found you. I'm sorry it took this long. I'm sorry for everything." My vision blurred. I wiped my eyes and kept reading. "I'm going to tell you everything. And I need you to read it all before you decide I'm a monster. Maybe I am. Maybe there's no excuse. But you deserve the truth." It started in February 2006. I'd been dating someone. Marcus. I met him at a club. Thought he was charming and successful. He said he owned a construction company, drove a nice car, took me to expensive restaurants. I was young and stupid, and didn't ask questions I should have asked. Turned out Marcus didn't own a construction company. He ran an illegal gambling operation out of the back room of a bar in Dallas. I didn't know until I was already in too deep. He'd been using me, Mom. Getting me to deposit checks in my account, move money around. I didn't know what I was doing was money laundering until the feds showed up asking questions. When I tried to break up with him, he showed me photographs. Me handing over envelopes of cash. Me depositing checks. My signature on documents. He had everything documented to make it look like I was his partner, not his unwitting accomplice. He said if I tried to leave or go to the police, he'd make sure I went to prison. Then it got worse. I borrowed money from him. $5,000, because my car needed a new transmission and I was broke. He said it was fine. No interest. Pay him back when I could. 2 months later, he told me I actually owed him $15,000, and the interest was compounding daily. When I said that wasn't what we agreed to, he laughed and asked if I had it in writing. I tried to get a loan, tried to work extra hours, but I couldn't keep up. By March, I owed him $40,000. He started getting threatening, showed up at Dad's grave and left flowers with a note that said, "Would be a shame if Margaret ended up here too." He knew where you worked, Mom, knew your schedule, knew everything about us. He said if I didn't pay him by the end of the month, he'd go after you, not just hurt you, kill you. And he'd make sure I watched. Marcus wasn't bluffing, Mom. He'd been arrested twice for assault, never convicted, because witnesses mysteriously refused to testify. I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't go to the police because of the money laundering evidence. I couldn't tell you because I thought you'd either try to pay him yourself or go to the authorities, and both options ended with you dead or me in prison. I was 23 years old and completely trapped, so I made a choice. The worst choice I've ever made, but the only one I could see. I took the money, all of it, liquidated everything I could touch, gave Marcus his $40,000, and told him we were done. Took the rest, and ran. I changed my name to Jessica Morrison. Moved every few months for the first 2 years, terrified he'd track me down. I worked cash jobs, slept in my car, lived like a fugitive. I was pregnant with Connor by then. His father was a one-night mistake in Tulsa, someone whose name I barely remember. But Connor became my reason to keep going. I saved every penny I could, lived on nothing. All I wanted was to pay you back, make it right somehow. But I knew if I contacted you, if I transferred money, Marcus might trace it, might find us. So I opened this storage unit and started putting money here. Every month, whatever I could spare. $10, $50, sometimes $100 if I had a good week. It took me 12 years to save up what I stole from you, Mom. 12 years of working doubles. Of Connor wearing hand-me-downs. Of skipping meals so he could eat. I've got $150,000 in this box. More than I took, with what I calculated as interest. I kept meaning to contact you. Every year I told myself I'd do it the next year, when I had more saved, when I could face you. But I was a coward. I was ashamed. And then I got sick, and suddenly I ran out of time. Connor doesn't know any of this except that I wronged you. He's a good kid, Mom. Honor roll student, works part-time at a grocery store, wants to be a teacher. He's everything good I somehow managed not to mess up. If you can find it in your heart, please help him. He doesn't deserve to pay for my mistakes. I know you might not be able to forgive me. I don't forgive myself. But I need you to know that leaving you was the hardest thing I've ever done. Every day for 19 years, I thought about you, missed you, wished things were different. I never stopped loving you, even though I had no right to. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. Your daughter, Jennifer. The letter was 3 pages long, front and back. I read it twice before I could move. Then I started going through the folders. Bank statements showing the money laundering accounts. Printouts of threatening text messages from a number registered to Marcus DeLeon. Police reports about him. News articles about his gambling operation being shut down in 2009, 3 years after Jennifer ran. He'd gotten 10 years in federal prison. Photographs of bruises on Jennifer's arms and neck, dated and time-stamped. A restraining order she'd filed, and dropped 2 days later. Medical records showing she'd gone to the ER in February 2006 for a dislocated shoulder, told them she'd fallen downstairs. And at the bottom, a lockbox. Inside, birth certificates, Connor's school records, Jennifer's death certificate from the Little Rock Hospital, and bundled in neat stacks, $150,000 in cash. I sat there in that storage unit for 2 hours, reading through everything. My daughter hadn't abandoned me out of greed or cruelty. She'd sacrificed herself to save me from a monster I never knew existed. All those years, all that hatred, All that grief. And she'd been out there living in fear, working herself to the bone trying to make it right, raising my grandson alone because she thought she was protecting us. The crying came then. 19 years of it, all at once. I sobbed until I couldn't breathe, until my ribs ached, until there was nothing left inside me but hollow exhaustion. I thought about all the times I'd cursed her name, all the nights I'd fantasized about what I'd say if I ever saw her again, how I'd make her understand the pain she'd caused. And she'd known. She'd carried that pain plus her own, had chosen to let me hate her rather than risk leading danger to my door. I drove home in a daze. Connor was awake, sitting at my kitchen table with a bowl of cereal. He looked up anxiously when I came in. "Did you go to the storage unit?" I nodded, set the box on the table between us. "I did. What was in it?" I looked at this boy, Jennifer's son, my grandson. He had her eyes and her stubborn chin. "The truth," I said. "The whole truth. Do you want to read it?" He did. I watched him go through everything the same way I had. Saw his face change from confusion to horror to grief. When he finished the letter, he looked at me with tears streaming down his face. "I didn't know," he whispered. "She never told me any of this. She never said she was in danger, never explained why we moved so much. I just thought she was paranoid or restless or something." "She was protecting you," I said. "Same way she protected me. Are you going to keep the money?" I looked at the stacks of cash. $150,000. More than enough to fix my roof, pay off my remaining mortgage, maybe even retire a few years early. Money Jennifer had scraped together dollar by dollar over nearly 2 decades. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "Part of me thinks I should. I earned it through suffering. But it feels like blood money somehow." Connor picked up one of the photos of Jennifer, one I hadn't seen. She was holding him as a baby, smiling at the camera. She looked tired but happy. "She talked about you sometimes," he said. "When she thought I wasn't listening, she'd say things like, 'My mom would have known what to do,' or 'My mom made the best tamales.' She missed you. I think she missed you every single day." That broke something in me. Or maybe fixed something. I wasn't sure anymore. "Connor," I said slowly, "what are your plans? For after this?" He shrugged. "I don't know. I graduate high school in May. I was going to try to get a full-time job, save up, maybe start community college eventually. Mom had some life insurance through her work, but it's only $10,000, and most of that'll go to her funeral costs. What if you stayed here?" The words came out before I'd fully thought them through. "Finish school in Denton. I've got a spare room. It's small, but it's yours if you want it." His eyes went wide. "Really? But I thought you hated us." "Hated Mom." "I did," I said honestly. "For 19 years, I hated her. But hate's exhausting, Connor. I'm too old and too tired to carry it anymore. And you're right. She was a good mom. She made terrible choices trying to do the right thing. But in the end, she protected both of us the best way she knew how. Does that mean you forgive her?" I thought about that. Did I? Could I? Forgiveness felt too simple a word for what I was feeling. Understanding. Maybe. Acceptance. Grief for all the lost years. All the pain we'd both carried unnecessarily. "I'm working on it," I finally said. "I don't think forgiveness is something that happens all at once. It's more like healing from an injury. Takes time. Hurts less gradually. Maybe someday I'll wake up and realize it doesn't hurt anymore. But I'm not there yet." Connor nodded, like he understood. "What about the money?" I looked at the box again. "We're going to use it to build something. Something Jennifer would have wanted. We'll pay off this house so I can retire eventually. We'll set up a college fund for you. And the rest? We're going to donate to organizations that help young people escape abusive relationships. So, Jennifer's suffering means something." "She'd like that," Connor said quietly. We sat there together in silence for a while. Two people bound by loss and blood, and 19 years of secrets finally brought to light. That was 4 days ago. Since then, I've been teaching Connor how to cook. Last night, I showed him how to make tamales. The recipe passed down from my grandmother to my mother to me. The one I'd always planned to teach Jennifer. His hands fumbled with the corn husks, got masa everywhere, but he laughed while doing it. It was the first time I'd heard him laugh. He sounds like Jennifer when he laughs. I'm not sure what happens next. Connor's staying, at least until graduation. We're taking it day by day. I'm keeping the money, but it doesn't feel like winning. It feels like inheriting the weight of all those lost years. I keep thinking about forgiveness, about what it means, whether I'm capable of it. Every time I look at Connor, I see Jennifer at that age, full of promise, and bad judgment and desperate hope. She made mistakes. Catastrophic mistakes. But she spent 19 years paying for them. And in the end, she still tried to make it right. Is that enough? I don't know. Ask me in a year, or 5, or 10. Maybe by then, I'll have an answer. For now, I'm just trying to show up. For Connor, who lost his mother. For Jennifer, who never stopped being my daughter even when I couldn't bear to think of her that way. For myself, who spent so long hardened by anger that I almost forgot how to soften. We visited Jennifer's grave yesterday, a simple marker in a Little Rock cemetery, bought with the last of her savings. Connor brought flowers. I brought the letter, read it out loud while standing over her stone. When I finished, I said, "I understand now. I wish you'd trusted me. I wish you'd let me help. But I understand. I couldn't say I forgive you. Not yet, maybe not ever. But understanding is something. Acceptance is something." And for the first time in 19 years, the stone in my chest feels a little lighter. Connor's teaching me how to use Instagram so I can see the photos Jennifer posted over the years. Hundreds of them. Connor at every birthday, every school event, every milestone. And in the backgrounds, sometimes visible, sometimes just implied by the angle of the shot, was Jennifer. Still there. Still loving her son. Still surviving. Still thinking of me. If the dates on those storage unit deposit slips are any indication, she never missed a month. Even when Connor was a baby, and money must have been impossibly tight, she put something aside. Building her way back to redemption, one small deposit at a time. I'll never get those 19 years back. Never get to see Connor as a baby. Never get to help Jennifer through single motherhood. Never get to tell her that Marcus got arrested, and she could have come home. But I have now. I have this 17-year-old kid who makes terrible tamales, and does his calculus homework at my kitchen table, and calls me Grandma Margaret like it's the most natural thing in the world. Maybe that's what forgiveness looks like. Not a moment of absolution, but a slow rebuilding. Not forgetting the past, but refusing to let it poison the future. Or maybe I'm just too old and too tired to hate anymore. Either way, here we are. Making tamales. Starting over. Trying to find grace in the wreckage. Jennifer left me more than money in that storage unit. She left me the truth. And the truth, it turns out, is complicated. Messier than anger. Harder than hate. But somehow more bearable. I can live with complicated. I've been doing it for 67 years. Connor's graduation is in May. I'm going to be there, front row, cheering for the grandson I never knew I had. For the boy my daughter raised alone, against impossible odds, while carrying the weight of choices she could never undo. And maybe, when they call his name, I'll cry. Not just for him, but for Jennifer. For the daughter I lost and found and lost again. For the woman who made terrible choices trying to protect the people she loved. For the mother who never stopped fighting to make things right. She told me everything in that letter. 19 years too late, but she told me. And now, finally, I know. And knowing, somehow, is enough.